Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're joining me today, chances are you know the exhausting, relentless, just absolute frustration of acne. You do everything right? The redness finally fades, you breathe this huge sigh of relief, and then, boom, it's back. Literally right where it was. Well, in this Explainer, we're going to build a completely new mental model of exactly why acne returns. And more importantly, we're going to deconstruct the invisible system, this hidden loop that's basically keeping it alive.
So you end up staring in the mirror asking, why did it come back? And listen, if your acne has ever felt totally random, incredibly stubborn, or just straight up unfair, I want to deeply, deeply validate that feeling for you right now. It is so frustrating. But here's the thing. If it feels random, that's only because you're fighting an invisible system, not just a random spot on your skin. Okay, let's dive into this.
Notice the core concept here, the recurrence problem. This is, hands down, the single biggest mindset shift we need to make today. Think of your skin kind of like a really busy bakery. Even if you wipe the front counter perfectly clean so it looks completely flawless to customers, the ovens in the back, they're still running. The dough is still rising. Another batch is literally already forming behind the scenes. Well, acne works the exact same way. What you see on the surface is just the final visible step of a much deeper, ongoing process. So, to really understand this bakery, we have to look at the ovens.
Which brings us to Section 1, inside a blocked pore, and the underlying process. You see, a pore isn't just some empty pit or a hole in your skin. It's actually a living, working channel connected to a tiny factory that's doing basic maintenance. Imagine a small room. Inside this room, material, like skin oil and old cells, is continuously being produced. Now imagine the exit door to that room just starts narrowing. Because the material keeps piling up, heat and pressure begin to build, and the room starts severely reacting to all that stress. It's actually very much like a sink train in your house. Water flows totally fine until a little grease and debris collect. It doesn't back up immediately, right? But it slowly gets tighter and slower until eventually it blocks completely. And this actually dismantles one of the biggest myths out there. We constantly hear that just having too much oil causes acne. But oil is completely normal. It protects your skin. The real issue here is imbalance. Think of it like cooking rice. Water alone isn't a problem, rice alone isn't a problem, and heat alone isn't a problem. But it's how they all interact that creates the final dish. When your oil production, your cell shedding, and your inflammation stop working together smoothly, that system imbalance is what actually cooks up the breakout. So, when a pore loses its balance and becomes blocked, it creates this trapped pocket. Imagine you're in a crowded elevator, and suddenly the door's only partially open. At first, it's just uncomfortable. But because the crowd can't move freely, people start bumping into each other. The space becomes incredibly tense and reactive. The true danger inside a pore isn't just the material itself, it's that terrifying loss of movement that makes the whole environment incredibly irritating over time. And this tension, it's exactly what leads us to the part of acne we hate the absolute most, the redness, the swelling, and the pain.
That takes us right into Section 2, the inflammation alarm, or your skin's smoke alarm. The absolutely crucial point to remember here is this. Inflammation is the skin's smoke alarm, not the fire. When your acne feels super hot and tender, that is usually not the very first event. That's actually your body reacting to the trouble inside that trapped elevator we just talked about. I mean, if a smoke alarm goes off in your house, the alarm is very real, and it's definitely very loud, but the alarm itself isn't the fire. It's just frantically telling you there's a deeper problem. Inflammation simply means your skin is screaming about that trapped, blocked environment inside the pore.
And because it's a system-wide problem, it can look totally different on the surface while being the exact same issue underneath. See that small clogged bump? That's just material starting to collect. The dark plug, the pore opening is blocked or exposed to air differently. The red inflamed spot is where the area has become highly irritated. And that really deep, painful lesion, it's literally the exact same engine, it's just happening deeper and with much stronger inflammation. There really aren't different problems, they're just different visible expressions of the exact same narrowed, irritated channel.
Moving on to Section 3, the acne loop, and how it's a self-reinforcing system.
Understanding that it's all one connected engine brings us to the most critical first principles idea of this entire explainer, how this loop actually functions. So your skin makes oil and shed cells, the pore narrows, material gets trapped, and the area becomes irritated. But look right here at step 4. This is where the magic, or I guess rather the misery, happens. This system resets imperfectly. Imagine a factory conveyor belt where one single station is just slightly misaligned. The products still move, but every so often one gets stuck and backs up the entire line. If you just clear the stuck product but never fix that misalignment, well, it's going to happen again. That imperfect reset leaves the conditions completely right for the next spot.
Here we can clearly see the three forces that keep feeding each other, making this acne pattern incredibly sticky. First, excess collection gives the clog actual material to form. Second, pore release means the pore opening doesn't clear smoothly, which keeps that material trapped. And finally, the inflammatory response makes the whole environment totally unstable and reactive. And what's wild about this is that each of these actually makes the others more likely. Once this loop starts spinning, it doesn't even need a major dramatic trigger to keep going. Tiny, almost unnoticeable shifts in your skin can just keep feeding it.
I like to think of this loop as a faulty rhythm. Imagine you're listening to a drum beat that just unpredictably speeds up and slows down. It ruins the whole song, right? But you can't fix the song by just muting one single bad beat. You have to correct the underlying rhythm itself. Treating a single pimple is literally like muting one beat. It doesn't stop the faulty rhythm from continually producing the very next one. And honestly, this brings us to the core confusion so many of us face. Why acne returns to the exact same spots right after a stressful stretch, or when a surface treatment suddenly seems to just stop working. Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Healed versus Changed, and evaluating the system.
There is a massive, absolutely huge difference between a healed spot and a changed system. With a healed spot, yeah, the bump looks better and the inflammation is definitely lower right now, but is it less likely to clog again? Not necessarily. Is it recurrence actually less likely? Not always. When you go through a super stressful week and break out, and then those spots naturally fade, sure, the surface is clear, but if that local skin environment is still biased toward clogging, the system hasn't changed at all. The ovens in the bakery are still on. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought today. When your skin clears up, ask yourself, your spot is healed, but is your system actually changed? We really have to make an identity shift here. We have to stop asking, why did I get this spot? And start asking, what part of the loop is still active? Because once you realize you are dealing with a self-reinforcing system, you stop chasing individual pimples and you start looking for ways to actually weaken the loop. And that is where lasting control truly begins. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new, empowering way to understand your skin.